What's going on? Let's talk 2025's Brick on Netflix, not 2005's Brick, even though that's a pretty good movie.
I'm leaving without you, and I won't be coming back.
Wait a minute, does that mean you're leaving me? That this is it?
And so Matthias Schweighöfer plays Tim, Ruby O'Fee plays Olivia. Tim and Olivia are in an apartment building that is suddenly surrounded by a mysterious cyber-like brick wall and must work with their neighbors to try and find a way out. It kind of reminds me of The Cube of Transformers, The Cube. But all of our apartment peoples are basically in this giant escape room scenario to where when they finally get a chance to work together and with each other, they not only have to find a way out, but find a way to work with people that aren't getting along very well. And that becomes the ultimate stumbling point for our character, specifically Marvin, who's just this extremely irrational human being. But inevitably, with a movie like this, you're going to have all kinds of genres at play. It's part sci-fi, part mystery, a little bit of a thriller, but at the end of the day, I consider this more of a dialogue-driven movie than maybe I would have wanted, because there are so many times when we can't really figure out where to go next, and so we'll sit down and have a conversation. And a lot of these conversations between these characters, while they do try or attempt to build them out just a bit to where ultimately you understand that, well, they're probably not going to get along, or there is an internal struggle there, specifically Tim and Olivia, who are coming off of something extremely tragic, and that hasn't allowed their relationship to progress. So not only can they not work with the others involved here, they can't really work with each other. That being said, we're gonna die if we don't figure out how the heck to get out of this apartment. And so it's almost like a little maze. The rat's caught in a trap. We start with two characters and they have to find their way to get into different rooms in this building. And we meet some interesting, like I said, occasionally unhinged, some people that just aren't very reasonable characters along the way, and them trying to figure out how to get out of this. I mean, that's basically the entirety of the film. There are a few sequences that are injected with a bit more energy than the rest, and there's a lot of dread all throughout this movie because it's basically an impossible situation, at least we think. Attempting an escape that feels like an impossible task, well, that makes for an entertaining premise, even though you do have a couple of characters in there that have the perfect skill set for a situation like this. I'm thinking, there's no way they got that lucky, but is there something more at play here? And as we get closer to our destination, what ultimately becomes the biggest problem with this film, other than the fact that it does plod through this mystery, the pacing was such a struggle to get through at times, and there were occasions where I'm thinking, yeah, they are trying to get us invested in these characters, and I do appreciate that in a sense, but then the other part of me is thinking, can we just move on with this mystery? I mean, it's just a repetitive series of events, scene after scene, and the character investment is important, but by the time you get invested in someone, you've ran out of steam with the mystery, and frankly, I just didn't care anymore. The other big issue is that it's just so damn predictable. I knew exactly where this movie was headed at times, and I won't talk about where we end up, but as we were progressing, the reveals per se, I mean, it's one giant mystery, so you want the reveals to be impactful, but they were less impactful, even though, again, there is some dread injected into these moments, but more so me going, okay, kind of saw that coming. All right, Marvin, what are you doing? Like, why would you ever do that? And I continue to just feel about every single reveal, even though the set pieces are nice. Again, I appreciate the attempt at building reasonable characters, or unreasonable in an entertaining way. I will say this, though, the cast isn't that bad. I like Matthias Schweighöfer quite a bit. They utilize his skill set fairly well, more so towards the beginning of this movie, but he's always popping up in these Netflix films, and every time I see him, like, okay. And he does lead this film, co-lead this film fairly well. Ruby O'Fee is solid. They have good chemistry, or lack thereof, but again, the script seems to settle in and get comfortable, never fully exploring that grief that they give us hints of. And then part of me is like, I want to make this a little more entertaining, and it can't pick a side here. Either fully explore the themes that you're going for, or let's move on with the mystery and entertain the audience. It stays in the middle, and you don't want to walk that fence if you're this type of movie. But at the end of the day, when an entire film hinges on these reveals and these big impactful moments and none of them land, well, ultimately this movie doesn't land all that well. And it felt like there was a lot just kind of left out of the edit. And I don't even know why I feel that way. It just felt like integral character moments given to us, but in between those, there are some elements missing to where I didn't feel fully satisfied by the end of this film whatsoever. And I'm not going to spoil anything here, but I'm thinking, okay.
What the fuck is this?
Again, cool concept though, finding clues along the way. The more we discover about what this wall actually is, the more intrigued I was about where this was going. But I would love to know, what do you think about Brick? The one from this year, not from 2005. And I would love to know your thoughts. Does this feel like Escape Room? Remember that horror film? Is it going for something that it just can't quite reach? Or did you have fun with it? More fun than me, obviously. And of course, share the love, drop the like, share this video if you enjoy these Netflix-specific reviews. Brick ultimately lands with a thud, tackling ideas like grief and remorse, but injecting little life into its characters beyond these underexplored themes. There's some solid production design, but this trap doesn't end up feeling as elaborate or as satisfying as intended. Part of me wanted it to be bad enough to make a stare at a brick wall joke, but I can't quite do that because there are some cool ideas here, right? And I like some of these performers. They didn't do that bad of a job. It's just, it's a movie that never quite hit its ceiling, even though it's made of bricks. That was a good one. All right, see you soon.